No matter how many times we see an instance of social media censorship being completely biased against the right, you still get these fake news journalists saying that there's no evidence that these companies are biased. And they'll say, you're just misconstruing an enforcement action, blah, blah, blah. They'll say so-and-so claimed, comma, without evidence, comma, that a social media company was biased. You know why they don't do that to me? They just say Tim Pool's opinion on social media censorship echoes that of conservatives. Well, the reason they don't say it about me is because I always show evidence whenever I talk about it. It was back in, I think, May of 2017. I can't remember the exact date, when Gizmodo, the left-wing publication, said employees at Facebook routinely suppressed conservative news outlets in the Facebook trending section. It is a fact. And now we have more evidence. This story from the Daily Caller is a follow-up on a story I did yesterday morning. New York Post reporter deletes tweets that exposed socialist YouTuber's wealthy background to get his Twitter account back. Let me tell you a story. If you missed this yesterday, you really got to check it out. There's a man named Maza. He's a socialist. He worked for the left-wing site Vox. I think he got fired or he left. His show was canceled. We'll put it that way. I'll put canceled in air quotes. We don't really know what happened. But he's making his own YouTube videos. He's the guy who got Steven Crowder demonetized. He tweets about how we can't take advice from the rich. Well, as it turns out, he comes from a family of extremely wealthy individuals. And according to the New York Post story, he's registered to vote at an $11 million mansion. And I think it was Boca Raton. Congratulations, good sir. You are a silver spoon socialist, someone who's never in any capacity experienced any hardship in your life, trying to tell working class individuals how they should spend their money or where their money should go. I love it. It's always these silver spoon socialists, isn't it? When I was at Occupy Wall Street, I can't tell you how many people that were there were trust fund kids. Their parents just paid for everything. How else do you think these people could not work and organize a protest like this? They think they know what's best for everyone else, but they've never done anything hard. Well, here's what happens. Maza, this guy, he tweeted these images of James Carville's house. What's that? The tweets are still up. Surprise, surprise. Now, I mentioned yesterday that this was an instance of social media censorship. John Levine had his Twitter account locked. He's the guy who actually did the report exposing Maza as a silver spoon socialist. However, he got his account back. He says, update. Twitter locked me out of my account last night over some of the Maza reporting. A rep for the company tells me that their action against me was an error. Too long didn't read. I'm out of Twitter jail, and all my original postings here remain live. He said, I want to thank everyone who made a fuss about it. This is the tweet the hall monitors didn't want you to see. Get it everywhere. What's that? The tweet's gone. You see, here's what ended up happening. You want to talk about bias in social media. John Levine then tweeted a second update. Despite initially calling their decision to lock my account an error, Twitter locked me out again a few hours later over the same Maza story. I have reluctantly deleted the tweet, and I'm sharing with you some of the timeline here. This is Orwellian. Let's pull up John's tweet. So John initially had the company say, oh, we're sorry for suspending you. And they came back and suspended him again. I'd be willing to bet perhaps there's something to this in the, Maza coming from let me slow down. Maza's extremely wealthy family, which is probably well connected in the tech industry, considering his stepdad started a company called Ultimate Software, is what they discovered. Apparently the company was sold for $11 billion, at least according to the New York Post. So perhaps someone's privileged silver spoon family stepped up to protect him, because Maza has faced no suspension for inciting violence, calling people to violence, and posting the home of James Carville. That gets a free pass. Welcome to the game. Welcome to social media censorship. So here's what Twitter said. Upon further investigation, these tweets violate our Twitter rules, specifically our private information policy. The account will remain locked until the tweets are removed. And that brings me to the Daily Caller story. John Levine had to remove some of his reporting because Twitter said only in the journalist's instance. Well, I'm sorry, the conservative journalist. I guess, I don't know. I don't want to call John if he's not a conservative, but New York Post. Well, this has to be removed. But Carlos Maza saying milkshake them all and posting photos of James Carville's house, well, that's just fine and dandy, ain't it? Let's read a little bit of the story. And then I've got some personal news about me facing some of this political bias, and you're going to love this one. New York Post reporter Jonathan Levine deleted his tweets exposing self-described socialist Carlos Maza's ties to his elite wealthy family after he was locked out of his account twice by Twitter. Levine reported on Maza's wealthy family origin Saturday, revealing that the former Vox employee's family has multiple mansions in Florida, and an expensive high-rise apartment in New York's Upper West Side. Oh man, you got to love these socialists. Remember when Bloomberg called out Bernie, saying the most prominent socialist in this country is a millionaire with 3 houses? What am I missing here? And Bernie's response was, yes, I work in D.C., I live in Vermont, and like most Vermonters, I have a summer camp. Or like many Vermonters. I'm sorry, dude. Is that was your excuse, trying to justify having 3 houses? Dude, come on. No, are you kidding me with this? Limousine liberal and silver spoon socialist. I love it. I love it. The reporter also tweeted out photos of Maza's family mansion, resulting in Twitter locking him out of his account for violating their privacy information policy until he was forced to delete the posts, according to Levine. Despite initially calling it, we read that part. He said it was Orwellian. Maza's parents, according to the Post sources, help pay for his 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan's East Village. Levine claims that a 1-bedroom apartment in that neighborhood typically costs an upward of $3,000 a month. Yes, that's true. Maza might have roommates. I don't know. I'm not going to make assumptions about how much they're giving him. Quote, my mom and her fiance are very wealthy thanks to a software company they started together when I was a kid. As a result, I've gotten to live a life of tremendous privilege. Let me just point something out to you guys to understand these socialists. When you grow up and literally everything is given to you on a silver platter with a silver spoon right in your mouth, and then you go to school where everything is given to you by the administration, you're told what to do, and you spend no money to go there because, like Maza admitted, he got to go to school debt-free. Of course they're going to become communists and socialists. They're sitting there thinking, life is hard. How come no one's giving me stuff? Why doesn't the government give me stuff? Hey, that's a good idea. If everyone just got free stuff from the government, then life would be better for everyone. Right, that's what they think. They don't understand that when you tax people, it's everyone paying. And if you tax people more than they have, then they don't have any money. And there's an upper limit to what you can actually get out of people. And if you're taxing everyone's money, then they know that if they work for anyone to get money, they will get nothing. So why bother doing it? Socialism doesn't work. It doesn't work. It makes no sense. They have these utopianist visions only because they live in bubbles. This is some kind of derangement. I'm not kidding. When you have never experienced any kind of struggle, you've never had to grow your own food, hunt for your own food, or even work a job to buy your own food, of course you don't realize the conservation of energy, that you must have an input, that you must have income in order to spend. Well, they don't. Everything to them is this perpetual money machine where all they do is sit around complaining and money just appears. Yeah, that's socialism for you. So Maza has admitted he has a safety net. So we get that. Let's get back to social media censorship. Here's the post. I covered this yesterday where he was, posting pictures of James Carville's house out exterior too. And then we have this: milkshake them all, humiliate them at every turn, make them dread public organizing. Carlos Maza literally called for crimes. That's battery. Throwing an object at someone, assault and battery in some jurisdictions. Like in Illinois, you get assault and battery charge for that. That's still on Twitter. Twitter hasn't taken it down. He's literally inciting violence against Trump supporters. Yet John Levine, a reporter who exposed him as a hypocrite and uber wealthy elite with a silver spoon in his mouth, he's the one who gets locked out of his account. Now, could it be a political bias? I would say absolutely yes. Could it be that Maza's family are tech-centered multimillionaires with connections and made a phone call? Yeah, I think that's probable too. Because Carlos Maza is basically a toddler, right? He's a little kid who doesn't work for anything, and he sits around crying and demanding that he wants something. And of course, he plays the thing where he's like, I'm trying to advocate for a system that would take power away from me. No, you're not. No. We know how these things work. People like you want to be the party in charge, and you will always demand stuff. Well, ignorant people like Maza don't understand what happens after they get their little revolutions, because they're the first people to go. But let's move on now. I got a couple more things to cover in terms of censorship and social media, and this next one will be a little bit personal. I tweeted this the other day. YouTube decided that my video talking about massive GOP voter turnout and Trump's town hall ratings constituted discussions of, quote, modern acts of terror, and demonetized my video. Awesome. Yep. So on my main channel, which is youtube.com/timcast, very different from this one, I typically, and for the most part, only talk about the current political cycle. This is part of an ongoing algorithmic evolution where YouTube is trying to box me into a corner. It's why I started this channel in the first place, because I am not stupid. I'm not saying I'm the smartest person in the world, but hey, I take precautions, right? So at a certain point, when I was making videos for my main channel, I decided to create this channel for what I would call runoff content that I don't think was big enough to be the biggest story of the day in certain circumstances. I then started making many segments. So I do about 5 segments. I do 5 segments on this channel every day, and I do 1 segment on my main channel. Now, over time, YouTube has started making the rules crazier and crazier and more difficult to actually produce content on my main channel. They're squeezing out basically everyone. Fortunately, the people who run YouTube don't pay attention to this channel, so it seems to be okay in certain regards. So here's what happens. If I do a video on this channel that talks about something, I don't know, shocking or whatever, some breaking news, maybe there's something happening around the world, it will probably be demonetized. It's typical. Almost every video I do on this channel gets demonetized initially. Rarely do they get monetized right away. About a day later, they get monetized. So like 90% of all the videos I produce on this channel are good a day after the fact, which brings me to the first problem. YouTube deciding that my video was a modern act of terror when I was literally talking about Fox News ratings means that in the first day when 95% of all views come in, you get nothing. Nothing. And then they go, oops, my bad, and they reinstate it. And then you get nothing because the views don't come back. People already saw the video. And you know what? Fine. I get it. It's why I diversified. But on my main channel, something else happens. They actively suppress videos if they flag them as modern acts of terror. This demonetization wasn't just about taking income away. It was about making sure people could not see it by limiting the reach. On this channel, which is not part of what's called self-certification, if my video gets demonetized, and they typically do, they still go out to the same amount of people regardless. So even though I won't make money, I don't really care because YouTube is running these videos like normal. On my main channel, well, I call my main channel, but youtube.com/timcast. If they flag a video, they suppress it. They shadow ban it. I started getting messages from people saying the video wasn't appearing, that it was improperly displaying comments, likes, and views. And that's exactly what happens when they look at my video and falsely flag it. And it's happened recently. One of the big problems is that there is a news story, which I'm not going to mention, that when it first broke was totally okay to talk about. I made a video and they said, you're all good. This subject is totally fine for monetization. And then 2 weeks later, when the story escalated, they said, no, we've gone back and decided to demonetize this video. And that what happens is the more videos you have demonetized, the higher risk your channel gets. Now they're trying to demonetize everything. But the point is, when they demonetize this video about Trump and they put these strict rules on my main channel, they make it so that the only thing I can do on that channel is specifically talk about, say, the Democrats and the Republicans. Some people have asked me, why is it that your main channel now almost exclusively talks about Trump, Democrats, Republicans, Congress, politics, whatever? And it's because the channel is effectively dead. That's it. Now, you still see those videos, right? Well, they're not being recommended. And if I deviate from those subjects at all, they suppress the content and they demonetize it. So I have a choice. I can put my political commentary stuff pertaining to Trump, Democrats, Republicans, etc., which I still do a lot of on this channel, or I can just say I can't do anything on the channel. I tried making a video about Antifa when there was this big thing that happened. They suppressed it and called it modern acts of terror. And when the video went live, it got something like 2 to 3% of the views it normally gets because YouTube shadow banned it completely. It didn't appear in my channel. It didn't appear in anyone's feeds. I went in the video, I had to blur a bunch of stuff and like mute some stuff. And then all of a sudden, boop, back to normal and the views shot back up. That's the game that YouTube's been playing with my main channel. That's the censorship. And this is where the worst example is this, that when I make a video saying, fine, I will play by your rules. I will make this video specifically about political content, political issues happening in this country. And I got to admit, I do think it's fair to say that the primaries, the election, and things I talk about are rather pertinent. I say, fine, we'll talk about this. They falsely flagged my content, calling a discussion about Fox News ratings a modern act of terror. And then the video gets suppressed, and then it makes no money. And I'm sitting here thinking, what am I supposed to do? That's what YouTube has been doing to not just my channel, but many other channels. There are many channels who have it worse than I do, because I actually have a contact at Google. And when this finally happens, I'm like, well, there we go. There's the day wasted on that content. They say, I reach out to Google and they say, we're getting right on it. And then a day later say, we fixed it for you. No problem. You fixed it for me? A human being watched my video and flagged it as terror. It was confirmed by manual review that talking about Trump and his record ratings and GOP voter turnout was terrorism. And so the video gets suppressed. And a day later, they reinstate it, but it's too late. They stopped recommending it. It makes no money. That's how it works. And if that continues, don't be surprised if there's a negative impact on the politicians you like, be it left or right. For the life of me, I can't figure out why people on the left who are supposed to fight against this have been advocating for a long time, except for one thing. It benefits them. Now, they'll claim that, LGBT creators are being negatively impacted. That's true. They'll say, oh, we get suppressed too. Yeah, to a certain degree. But as soon as you come out and say, look, here's evidence. John Levine of the New York Post got suspended and then reinstated and then suspended again. They'll say, that's just an anecdote. That's not evidence. Then you'll say, yeah, well, what about me? This is like the 80th time this has happened. I have a list of videos. There's like 8 videos because there's a program on YouTube called self-certification, meaning when you upload a video, you list if there's any, offending content in your videos like swearing or discussion of modern acts of terror. And I put no, of course, because I'm a milquetoast fence sitter talking about Donald Trump and Democrats. And 99% of everything is okay. But periodically, they go in and falsely flag my videos. And sometimes I say, what's the point? The video is dead. It's already beyond its 24 hours. The views won't come back. The news has become less relevant. It made no money. Why bother dealing with it? And then what happens is they use that to justify suppressing more of your content, saying, well, you're high risk. Look at all of these demonetizations. So even though all my videos should be monetized, even though I don't even swear in these videos, doesn't matter. They'll go in. I did a video. It was about, I think, Bill Maher, and they confirmed it. I have no idea why. And there's nothing that you can do about it because a human being at the company said so. Now, mistakes happen. I get it. And maybe this is a mistake. But the mistakes always flow in one direction. Or, I'm sorry, they tend to flow in one direction. There have been many people on the left who have been suspended and banned, particularly the anti-war progressives. But here's how it always plays out. It always plays out with some fringe lunatic leftist who comes from a multi-millionaire family, literally advocating for violence. And Twitter says, you're all good, buddy. And that's it. And the reporter who exposes the guy is the one who gets suspended on Twitter. Give John a follow. Levine Jonathan on Twitter, because he's the one who's exposed to this and he's taken a hit for it. Twitter is a trash website. YouTube has its problems, but I will wrap up with saying this. There are some pros and there's some cons. The pros to social media is that, look, for all the faults of YouTube, I'm doing really well. You're able to hear my voice right now on this platform. They do recommend my content to a certain degree. So I'm complaining, but I want to make sure you realize I do think there's a net positive to YouTube and Twitter for the most part. There's another big mistake being made by these companies that needs to be addressed. When you only ban the crazies on the right and you ignore the crazies on the left, you drive people in droves to Donald Trump. You want to know why? From the outside, the untrained observer, the uninitiated passive liberal or moderate in this country, someone who is not sure who they're going to vote for, logs into Twitter and what do they see? a lunatic socialist screaming about attacking people in the streets. And the other crazy people of the right, they're all gone. So the only right-wing people they see is a suit-wearing man with a tie saying, well, I, for one, think our economic policy could use a good reform. And Donald Trump's tariffs have been a net boon for this government. And you're like, well, I don't know if that's true, but I don't know. I hear what you say. And then you look to your left and there's Maza saying, throw milkshakes at people. And you're like, that is not a policy position that I would like to support. That doesn't seem to make sense. And that's one of the biggest pitfalls, the backfiring of social media censorship. If these companies don't realize it, and they haven't, they're going to create an environment where you have psychotic leftists creating cancel culture, which has happened, trying to destroy people's lives, which is happening, and you are going to have anyone on the right who might be deemed crazy or fringe purged. So the only visible people will be clean-cut conservatives with good opinions, with strong arguments. They think they're going after their ideological opponents because they're only going to allow certain ideas to flourish. But instead, they allow people like Carlos Maza to say insane things and get away with it. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.